Alright, the scripts. The scripts are a very interesting topic, and thank you a lot for watching until now. So this episode covers scripts to create new matches easily, as well as in a batch. And the same goes also for deleting matches and as a batch as well. Now, feel free to stop watching if you'd like to skip the script functionality. Everything can theoretically be done manually by duplicating the template sheet and adjusting a single cell, as well as the sheet name. I will not go into a lot of details, since scripts themselves could make for just another series just like this, which honestly I'm not willing to complete. I will skip over the basic syntax. This is written in JavaScript. There are a lot of great resources online, and feel free to use the Google Apps Script documentation, which is linked in the video description, for anything you don't know. Now, as I've mentioned, it's written in JavaScript, and it recently updated to use the new V8 engine. If you don't know what that means, it's okay, but in short, you can now define constants, you can now declare variables with let instead of var, and everything around that. Okay, first step of creating a script is, of course, accessing the script editor by going under Tools and then Script Editor. What you need to understand about Google Apps Script is there's a basic hierarchy behind everything around scripting with Google Sheets. First of all, we have the spreadsheet app, which is the whole application you're working with. If you take a look at your screen, it's basically the website, the interface. Next is a spreadsheet, which represents one of the many spreadsheets you have, for example, in your Google Drive. Some Excel users would also call them workbooks. Next is the sheet, which is a part of a spreadsheet, which is one of the tabs at the bottom inside of a single sheet. And last, we have a range, which considers a cell or a group of cells in a sheet. Now that we've covered that, let's go into the code. First, we define a few constants, which overall means less typing work. And it's also usual to write the names of constants in uppercase separated with underscores. The next step would be to create a custom UI. We take advantage of the onOpen function, which is a predefined function in Google Sheets, where everything in it is executed once you open the sheet. In this case, we want to make or display a custom UI from which you can execute your own functions. It makes it possible to test with other UI elements such as pop-ups or text boxes, since you can't really test them when executing from the Google Script editor. Every change to the UI, such as adding or removing elements, requires a refresh of the sheet to be applied, but any change to a function used by the UI doesn't require a refresh. So if you're working on your creating or deleting matches, you don't have to refresh your page every time. Now, just like for the match results, I'm switching to VS Code. It's faster to type with predefined snippets. It has better formatting and syntax highlighting. And in the footage right now, you don't have any autocomplete for Google Apps Script specific functions. But the script was prepared, so it was okay. You can actually add functionality for Google Apps Script specific functions, but I might explain that in another video. I'm going to extract methods for external functions for easier use later on, which for one is getUserInput, which opens up a prompt like a small window in the middle of the screen, where the user can enter anything into it, and the function returns the input of the user. Now there are a few different button sets, like a group of buttons that you can use, which each of their different functionality, which I'm going to list on screen. The next function we're going to define is the duplicate template sheet, which basically creates a new sheet from the template sheet with the given match ID. First, we have to set the active sheet to the template sheet, which we do with spreadsheet.setActiveSheet. Reminder, the spreadsheet in this case is one of the constants we defined earlier on. Next, we duplicate the sheet by using spreadsheet.duplicateActiveSheet. Next, we change the match number cell in the sheet to sheet.getRange, and then your cell reference .setValue. Lastly, we're going to change the sheet name with the setName function. Now, we get to the fun part. We're actually creating a match now. First, we have to get the match ID, which we simply do by using the getUserInput function we just defined. And we then check for empty inputs and return if the input is empty, because we can't really work with empty input. Important to note is there's no check for integer validation, such as like negative number or 1 million. Because in this case, we don't even need an integer necessarily. When you have a group stage in your tournament and you have your different groups like group A, B, C and so on, a common pattern is to call the match IDs with the group ID and the match number in the group. So a match could be called like A1 or C6 or something like that, which is why I don't put any checks in for integer validation. Final step, we duplicate the sheet, and that's it. Now, just like I've mentioned so many times in the tutorial so far, make sure to test your stuff. Let's take a look and see if it works. Seems like everything worked just fine. So let's go on to making the next function. Now for deleting matches, we delete the match basically the same way we create a match, but instead of creating a match, we delete a match. So we get the input, we check if it's empty or not, we return if it's empty because we can't work with empty data. And now instead of making a sheet, we delete one. There's no direct function to delete a sheet by name, so we grab the sheet object by name and use that as a reference to delete it from the spreadsheet with the delete sheet function. So I just added something to the UI menu. So that's why I have to refresh the page to make it show up in the new menu. Now we want to create a batch of matches, or I'll also call it a sequence of matches. What do I mean with sequence? I mean like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. But this sequence can start anywhere like 3, 4, 5, 6 or like 16, 17, 18 and so on. And for that we have to use get user input twice. So 2 windows pop up so we can enter 2 different numbers. Those 2 numbers are what I call lower and upper bound, to know where to start with the sequence and to know where to stop with the sequence. And then we have to check for empty input twice. And as you can already imagine, we have to use a loop, a for loop in this case. Just as written in the code as a comment, the for loop isn't going forwards like we're used to, but it's going backwards, because otherwise the order of matches in the sheet would be backwards as well. Because if we duplicate a sheet, the new sheet is put right to the template sheet instead of at the end of the sheets. Again, let's test the stuff again. And great, it works. Now, imagine we accidentally created a batch of matches by accident. Maybe we typed in the wrong number. Maybe we forgot to change the map pool on the template before creating the batch of matches. So it would be pretty convenient to delete the sequence of matches as well. And in essence, it's basically the same thing as creating a sequence of matches, just instead of creating, you delete. So again, we take 2 inputs, we check for empty input twice, and this time the forwards or backwards of the for loop doesn't matter at all, because at the end there isn't anything that we need to have ordered. It's all just empty, so it doesn't matter if we delete the sheet from beginning to end or from end to beginning. It would probably be better to check if the sheet exists before trying to delete it, because otherwise it's just going to throw an error. I didn't do it in the footage, but you can probably figure out how to do it. Now for the final tests of the script, deleting a batch of matches. We still have the sheets of 1 to 7 in the spreadsheet, so we'll just delete them. So that's it with the script section, and also that's it with the series. I'm going to have the code I've just written, the JavaScript code, I'm going to have that in the video description. I hope you've learned something, and I hope you have a great day. So until then, see you next time, maybe, who knows? Goodbye!